lot. I mean, I miss my yard.
Yeah,
Yeah. Did you grow up with a yard?
I did.
Where'd you grow up?
Northbrook.
Northbrook, okay.
Yeah. So Ferris Bueller's Day Off land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of John Hughes stuff up there.
Yeah.
He's probably from that region.
He is actually. Yeah. So that's a cooler way of saying where I'm from than saying the North Shore.
Yeah.
Just the place where the Breakfast Club
Let's
was
see.
filmed.
Breakfast Club,
Yeah.
Home Alone, 16 Candles, Uncle Buck.
Damn.
What's another? The Great Outdoors? But that was probably filmed somewhere else. John Hughes did a lot
Yeah.
of movies in the 80s and 90s. What's another like famous one he did? We could probably look it up, but I rather just try to guess. We said Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Maybe like, what's another one? I don't know.
I only know the coming of age ones. The
Those
Breakfast
ones.
Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, you never heard of Uncle Buck?
They do a horrible job of making John Hughes part of the culture of the town. They'd rather just be boring, affluent, whitewashed, uninteresting.
I just figured being in Chicago,
Yeah.
being from Chicago, you kind of, John Hughes is like a household name.
Yeah, he's
because of those movies I just named, especially
Totally.
how old are you? You're
28.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're 6 years younger. Maybe that could be it. I was born right when those movies were
Yeah.
popping. So like
Yeah.
my cousins and siblings who were older than I
Yeah.
were watching all of them. And it was a big ordeal to like his movies, and it's filmed in Chicago and it's from Chicago.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So those were, for me, those were a little bit of a throwback. When I'd watch those, I'd be like, oh, this is from the 80s.
Yeah.
I think it is, right?
Yeah,
it's from the 80s.
all those
Yeah.
are from the 80s except for Home Alone is 90. He probably had something to do with Home Alone too, but that's in New York. And what else? Because I'm trying to think what else he did back then. I can't. I wish we had someone who would just look it up.
I know,
for us.
right. Bob.
Bob, pull it up. It's a cool area that I never really went to until more recently, the North Shore area, suburbs. It's just so far from where I'm from.
You grew up in the west suburbs? Hinsdale?
Southwest. Hickory Hills.
Hickory Hills, right.
Yeah, so if you took 87th Street, if you went down south to 87th Street and then took it west all the way, about a mile and a half past Harlem.
Oh, okay.
Would be
Yeah,
so if you took like Harlem all the way down to 87th Street and met at that intersection from around that area. And I went to high school at Argo High School, which is on 63rd Street in Harlem. So it's like it's at the very tip of Chicago. Chicago starts there.
Yeah.
And Summit starts like the first suburb outside of Chicago is Summit, and that's where I went to high school. So I grew up like right at the border of the city limit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you had pretty easy access, I guess, if you did want to go into the city. But
I went in the city all the time because the train, the Midway train ends right there on 63rd and Cicero, and I would just take the bus down to it. I took the bus down to it all the time for concerts, for going to the city, hang out with friends, college, stuff like that. So yeah, I was just close enough, just outside of it. And then like my dad grew up on the south. So I've always felt like I lived in Chicago. My whole family lives in Chicago.
yeah.
Yeah, so it always felt like it, even though I was just outside of it.
Yeah. It's cool.
And where you grew up, Northbrook?
Northbrook, yeah.
Northbrook. How far out of the city is that?
So you can actually see the Sears Tower from the highest point in Northbrook.
Yeah.
So it's not so far that you forget, but it's far enough that you're totally in a little bit of a shire. I think of it as like the Shire from The Hobbit. It's like super safe, a little sterile, closed off from the harsh realities.
It's a nice area, right?
It's a nice area.
Yeah, the funny thing about bringing up the Sears Tower to see it, it's kind of a funny example to use because you could see it from like 4 states.
Are you? Oh, man.
I'm pretty sure you could see it from Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. Damn. I've seen it from all 4 states,
Damn.
Because it's so tall on a clear day.
Yeah.
Especially across the lake. If you're looking at it across the lake, it's like the first thing you see, So to see it from your neighborhood or your town doesn't bring much perspective to people because you can see it everywhere.
But they don't know. No, I'm kidding.
They don't know
I'm kidding.
Yeah, when you have a 1,400-foot piece of steel in the sky, nothing else is close to it. You'll see it everywhere, And I think of like the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
In United Arab Emirates, I believe it's in. It's so tall. I mean, it's like 2,700 feet or something. It's like twice as tall as Sears Tower, almost. So how far away can you see that? Think about like how many miles, like 300 miles can you see that thing? Like a little pencil sticking up?
Actually, this is interesting because the Midwest is so flat, right?
Yeah.
So that probably helps.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to Omaha, Nebraska. Have you ever been to Omaha, Nebraska?
I have, yeah.
And it's hilly.
Yeah.
Even though it's the Midwest.
Yeah.
And I was like...
Well, the Midwest is huge.
It's huge.
If you like define it, and the Midwest has like 2 tiers to it. You know, like when you think of the Midwest, what are the Midwest states to you?
That's the thing. I think of our Midwest, which is Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan. That's like the core of the Midwest,
And
obviously,
Indiana.
because in Indiana, because that's where we're from.
Right, but it kind of it branches just a little bit further than
it does.
Like
I think Ohio
is definitely part of it.
Not Pennsylvania.
Not Pennsylvania.
Missouri.
Missouri
is a little bit, but a little southern.
Missouri.
Iowa
for sure.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like that's far. Once you get to Nebraska,
oh yeah,
if you're talking the tip of Ohio, next to Pennsylvania, all the way to the end of Nebraska, next to Colorado. What is that? Like 1,400 miles? Like that's kind of a big area. So it's like, It's not, because I've driven all of this, and when you take 80 west and you go through flat Illinois, and you get a little bit of hills when it hits Iowa, and then it gets flat again. Then you get some more hills in Iowa by Nebraska. Then it gets flat again. Then you get the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. But like half of Nebraska to half of Colorado is just flat. Just the flattest thing ever. And then it gets crazy mountains. So yeah, I don't know. The Midwest thing, it's big and it's deep. You can people count it as far as like Minnesota down to like Missouri. I mean, that's far. So
yeah,
I don't even know how we got on this.
Yeah, I know, right?
We've been talking geography the whole time. Well, you know, we can segue to music because music and geography affect each other heavily. And you're a musician.
I was literally on my way driving here. I was like, you know, Ben grew up around here. This is the classic Chicago, like not snowy, but winter day.
Yeah.
It's crisp. It's gray.
It's like
I love it.
35, just above freezing.
Yeah.
I wish there was some sunlight. I don't mind the temperature.
Yeah.
Temperature is fine. If there's sunlight and you get used to 35 degrees, it's not the worst thing ever. But this constant, we've had like what, one full sunny day in like 2 weeks? It's just been gray on gray on gray. And when you have gray on gray on gray, it means the clouds are low and trapped. So the temperature barely fluctuates. It fluctuates like 12 degrees from the coldest part of the day to the hottest part of the day, which is not a lot. So it's always like a constant, you feel like you're trapped. Because even having temperature fluctuation at least lets you know you're alive and experiencing Earth. But when it's just constant, you're like, are we just in this like Groundhog Day?
I know what you mean, where it's the same color all day.
Everything's the same.
It's black.
It's just black.
At like 5.
In fact, when it's so gray, because it's the moisture from the lake effect and the clouds and it's trapped, you never know what time it is. If you don't look at your phone from about 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., it's the same light outside. It's just gray.
Yep.
There's no light change. It's a little light change, but it's not much. And it does get exhausting after a bit. You just rinse and repeat, and you feel like it's the same every day. And you wake up and like, oh, there it is. It's just perfectly gray. But whatever. I mean, that's what we get for living here. It's just, I don't know. I never know why we still complain. We still do. We all do. I'm guilty too. It's like we keep choosing to live here. In fact, like nearly 3 million people keep choosing to be in this city. And we complain about it, and it's cold. It's one of the, I think it is the coldest big city in America. Easily. And we still stay here. So I don't know. But it's hard because, again, segue to music, our music scene is so remarkable. It's hard to leave it. As an artist, this is such a great city to be in, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So let's transfer over to
your
music and who you are and what you do.
Yes. Well, my name is Jared. I'm a musician, have been my entire life. I have a band. I guess this is more for Ben and I are already acquainted, but I have a band and super passionate about music. I also, the way Ben and I actually met was through an organization I ran for 6 years. I'm still tacitly involved in, called Art Night Chicago.
Yeah, which is great. It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, and I actually saw DZ Fest, the thing that Ben puts on. I was like, there's a similar ethos here.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not the same event, it's the same. It's a very Chicago spirit, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how great you are, you're still very much just the Chicago. Or you're part of Chicago, you're part of the community. I don't know. It feels like a moral equalizer.
Sure.
I don't know if you've thought about it in that way. I think you have. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, Art Night and music have been my 2 biggest pursuits. So community organizing and performing.
Can you talk more about Art Night, like what exactly went on there?
Yeah, for sure. So long story short, and we could get into smaller parts of this if we want, but the long story short is I was at the end of college and I went to school for music. I went to conservatory, Oberlin. And
in Ohio?
In Ohio, yes, exactly.
What year did you
weird
graduate
Midwest.
from there?
2017.
I have a friend
Do you
who
know
went.
people?
Yeah, I know someone who went there. Cody is his first name. He's a drummer. He lives in New York. He's in this band, Work Life. They played DZ Fest, and we toured. I did a couple shows with them last January, actually, like this week. And he went to, I believe he went to that same college. He might be around your 28. I think he's 27, 28. So you might have crossed over. And he played drums. His name's Cody. I could find out his last name for you and tell you off mic. You might remember him. But yeah, when you said that, I was like, it sounds like it's Ohio, and it sounds like that's the same school he brought up. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
And speaking of Midwest, that's like a totally different flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But
and you went there to study saxophone?
jazz saxophone.
Saxophone.
Yeah.
Right. What kind of saxophone do you play? Alto, tenor?
I play tenor.
Tenor.
Yep. So
And what are the from the lowest to the highest for the audience? Can you explain the differences?
Yeah, totally. So if you've probably heard in a choir, there's like bass, soprano, alto, tenor. With saxophone, there's the same difference in how high and low the instruments are, and you just add the word alto or tenor before the word saxophone to make it that. So it's alto saxophone, tenor saxophone, bass saxophone, and then there's some crazy. So the most common are alto, tenor, soprano, and bass. And then there's some extremes. You can go contrabass, sub-contrabass, sub-contrabass, which is like a 6.5-foot instrument that you need to have on a stand. And then you can go all the way to sopranino, which is this tiny toy of an instrument.
I've seen very thin saxophones that almost look like clarinets.
Yep. And actually, those were used in the early Dixieland bands as a way to project over the drums in a way that the clarinet was struggling to at the time. Not that the clarinet failed in its role. It was an amazing instrument in those.
But because of the nature of its the physical build of it, it can't. Metal and brass can be much louder.
Yep.
Metal is it resonates much easier, and its sound transfers through it much more intensely because it's metal. And yeah, that's why anything metal is just an aggressive pitch to us. It just can get up to that register to our ears to make it just peak more. That's why cymbals are so hard to get over, because it's metal being hit. You know, it's a similar thing. They're in a very high frequency range that are hard to mask. That's why cymbals are so harsh when you listen to them. Yeah, that's why like a good drummer knows that, and they know how to be dynamic and careful with the cymbal play. Because if you're hitting your kick and snare very soft and banging those cymbals, it's such a mismatch in dynamics that it can throw off it could ruin a band, like truly. So I don't know. I just thought of that as soon as you.
I completely agree. Yeah.
So the lowest would be the bass, standard, those four. Then soprano.
Yep.
Then alto. Then tenor.
Yep.
Okay. And you play
I play tenor.
So the highest one.
I have an alto if somebody needs. Tenor is actually the one that's exactly my vocal range. So like, it's like that's like the tenor.
Okay.
Which I don't think is a coincidence. I think people might gravitate towards instruments that are
Yeah.
Have you ever predicted, like, you meet someone, you're like, of course you're a trumpet player.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can point out.
Yeah.
It's more in their demeanor. Like meeting you, if I didn't know you, I would instantly guess that you definitely play an experimental jazz. 100%. It's the bead. No. That, and I mean, I know you're Jewish, and a lot of Jewish people play jazz.
Yes.
Come on. Just like they also play classical music, and it's part of the culture. It's a historical thing. It's not anything that's crazy. And so that is a giveaway, but I knew that was a personal thing. And then if I didn't know that, I'd say your demeanor, it's hard to explain. Musicians who are classically trained and went to school for it have a very specific, and I'm a nerd, so I say this with love, of nerdiness about them. Not like dork or dweeb, but like just nerdy. You're into the thing. You've been doing it your whole life. You can't help but be a nerd about it. You get excited. Like, you literally laughed talking about like your voice and the register of it. It's like very nerdy, But I do the same stuff when I get into my thing. So yes, it's easy to tell. Usually instruments also reflect on a person's personality. These are averages. It's a bell curve. There's going to be some people that are like super quiet, but they're the lead singer and they're really introverted. That happens. But most of the time, you could tell when someone's the lead singer. The bass players are usually the most quiet people, by far.
Totally.
By far.
And what's interesting about this is that I realized I wanted to start singing. Only 2 years ago that I wanted to start singing. by seeing other people in bands and realizing who I was resonating with the most in the band, just on a personal level, and what I was feeling like I could not express on the saxophone. Not that the saxophone has a limit, but I think depending who you are, it has a limit. You know, like Coltrane actually started screaming during his final recordings. He has this album Live at Temple where he takes the horn out of his mouth and he starts screaming. So everyone's kind of like, you know.
Everyone loses it a bit after you play jazz. You play jazz long enough, you're like, what are we doing this for? You know? Jazz is a funny one because it's one of the coolest. It's like, when you think like cool, like someone's badass, like cool, you think jazz. Sunglasses, a joint, a cigarette, a suit, you know, late 3 a.m., cocktails, neon signs. It's like, it's cool. But in elements, it breaks through in mainstream, but it never like full on does. It always just kind of like stays in this underground world that everyone knows about, but it doesn't grab on to mainstream. And I think it's just normalized enough to exist and everyone accepts it. And like, here's it in music, here's it in movies, enjoys it and thinks it's classy, but it's not normal or digestible and comprehensive enough to be of pop culture and be like way up there. And it has elements. It cuts through all the time, but it's not quite. You know, you play some jazz music for some young kids and they'll be like, what are you, my grandpa? You know, they're like, oh, whatever. They just won't bite on it, you know?
And what's interesting about that is that it's not a, what's the word? It's a feature. It's not an accident in a way. Like,
it's a feature, not a bug.
It's a feature, not a bug. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I always used to be like, damn, why because it's a male-dominated thing, everyone's girlfriend looks so bored in the audience. And I always felt so bad for them. And it's no shade. Like, I studied jazz seriously for 10 years. This is literally just my observation. And you'll hear people say, it's all about the music. It's all about the music. Don't worry about anything else. Just get as good as you can. Study the theory, which is interesting because I actually don't think that was even true for the pioneers of the music. Like, Miles Davis was a pioneer of fashion. That's not about the music, and that certainly was part of his image, right? Mm-hmm. So I've actually been thinking about this a lot. What makes an artist beloved and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. What does? What do you think?
That's a really good question. I guess some things the first thing that comes to mind is relatability, that the artist is expressing something that the listener is, in a sense, relieved or happy or put at peace having heard expressed because they can relate to it.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think at its core, music and
That's
art.
One of the
music
things.
And art.
That's one of the things. When you brought up the fashion with Miles Davis,
yeah,
fashion's a huge thing in the music industry. You're good. Wildness, you know, how extravagant, how do you stick out in a good way, but like in a dangerous way, a loud way, the clothes, the hair, piercings, tattoos, behavior, they all signal some type of thing because they might just catch eye. But I don't know. I mean, a big one is looks. That's big. That's a big one. That's any industry. Looks kind of trump everything. They sadly trump skill sometimes. Not sometimes, too much. And that's, I don't know, that's just human nature. We can't help it. We're drawn to attraction regardless of skill. But I think some of the best people at doing it do what you said. They make music that people can relate to. They do a twist on what has been, but what is to come. You know, people haven't heard this type of thing yet, but it's relatable to what a foundation they grew up with, maybe.
Sure.
And then like pushes boundaries with like sonic displays, like literally is doing sonic things that aren't quite done yet. And those are like the leaders of any industry. But the problem I have with that is if they're not doing that, like shame on them for not doing that. Because if you are a multimillionaire off your art and then your main objective and goal and job is to make art, and you live in New York or LA or a fancy loft in Chicago or something, and you have your own studio, you are the one of the only people on the planet that has the luxury of pushing the boundaries because that's all you're allowed to do. You have nothing in your way. You have no financial need. So you just sit there all day. Also, you're collaborating with the best at the best of what they do in the world. So it doesn't shock me that the people at the top are pushing boundaries. It's like they better be, like, even more so. If they're not, then shame on them for this gift that they've been given to be multimillionaires off a hobby to most people, but off a craft. And they have the time to do it. It's like when an athlete keeps getting better and better at their job, people are surprised. Like, that's all they have to do. Think about it. You say you studied jazz for 10 years. You probably had to do internships or jobs or grades or papers, right? Imagine if all you had to do was just play music and you were paid very well for it. Wouldn't you probably start to push stuff, and then every studio you went to and every show was the best of each person? Wouldn't you start to conjure up new ideas that are pushing? Like, how could you not? So when people don't do that, it's the big problem we have with big popular music who rinse and repeat their music and they don't try something new. It's almost like shame on you for, like, we gave you this gift as your patrons and you're just going to keep rinsing out the same stuff, the same pop music over and over again. That's why I like when musicians, even if I don't care for them, do something new. Like, try something really new. It's like, good, like, push the boundaries. We're giving you the pass to do it. We're passing the baton to you, societally speaking. You should do something with it. But I'm not really that impressed when anyone who is at the highest level keeps doing new stuff. I'm like, yeah, you're the one who should be doing it. I can't. I'm too busy working, trying to pay my rent in, like, this, apartment. It's different for us. Now, one could argue that the struggle is what creates new stuff because we're put under pressure like diamonds, Not calling us diamonds, but the struggle is what can make new stuff, because if you have nothing, if you're not struggling anymore to survive, then where do you get the inspiration? Where do you get your inspiration to play music? Because you had a good education, you grew up in a nice area, you live in Chicago, you seem like you don't have to. You have to work and get by, but you're not dying on the streets, right? So where do you get your inspiration from to play jazz, to play music, to write?
Yeah, I think there's an aspect of it that is just like, for example, if I see something pretty, it hurts me that what I'm experiencing is not exactly communicable in words to my friend, for example. Like, if I say, isn't that so beautiful? Or, like, look at the way that man is sitting on that bench with the pigeon next to him. Like, isn't that kind of interesting? And the fact that my experience in life is not, I cannot feel understood simply by just talking about it, is probably a big part of what drives me to do art, and always has. And I also think, like, in terms of the, pain as a, kind of what you're talking about as a jump starter for creating art. I think for me, the suburbs are a weird thing because everyone is playing into this facade of everything is perfect, like the kind of like picket white fence things.
Yeah.
And if something is not perfect, you cannot talk about it. And you feel like all of your friends are going to leave you. And, the best way to express that things aren't perfect is to, like, smoke weed and skateboard. And then people are going to be like, all right, Yeah.
That's the best way?
I don't know. Like,
is that what you did?
I did not talk about any of my struggles growing up.
Right.
And I think privilege and affluence, which I was born into in Northbrook. I'm not saying I'm like a fucking heir to the throne.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I grew up in...
You had a very safe situation.
Exactly.
Good. Yeah.
Which is a good thing, but there was no culture. There was none of that. And when I did have a kind of a, lack of a word, a messed up home, and the gaslighting experience, both from the messed up home, but also from the society and culture I was in a bubble inside of, made it feel like my reality was not validated or perceived by anyone.
That.
And I think art is a really great way to bridge that. It's not a conscious thing, but it's a necessary thing. Like, art is necessary. It's always been here with humankind. Yeah. And I think, for me, art is necessary. For a lot of people, art's necessary to consume or to document or to be a part of in some way. This is how it's necessary for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a big issue with not the music part, but what you said about being in a really safe, financially stable place, but feeling trapped or not being able to express yourself. That's a big issue with a lot of places like that. And I've seen it. When I go up to the North Shore, specifically the really nice areas, even nice areas of Chicago, and the people I've met that grew up in very stable areas financially, is that keeping up with the Joneses, that facade of perfection, the white picket fence, the one dog, everyone has their bedroom, and they go to bed on time, and they, valedictorian, and they're going to go to a good school, and that's what the parents talk about is their local club, is what school their kids are going to, and the 16-year-olds get a Mercedes or BMW, and the lack of struggle sounds good for a lot of people, like, oh, I wish I had that. But what comes with that is a pressure, and I'm not sound like woe is my life for people who have stable upbringings, but I'm saying, but it's very real, and it's all relative. It's still a person who's not being able to express themselves. All financially stable situations aside, you're a human being that has to live up to an unrealistic expectation that's not even real. And that's the problem.
And that you didn't choose.
You could choose.
Until you're 18. You really didn't choose.
No.
Actually, until you're 22.
And you usually don't have a choice.
You usually don't.
When you're in those situations, the parents are so successful and strict, and that's how they got there to begin with, and that they put that on you, and it's harsh. And yeah, you get some pros. You get your nice car at 16, and college is probably paid for. But you don't get a say in anything along the way because it's paid for. When things are taken care of, you don't get a say. I grew up in right in the middle, not pure poverty where you're in trouble, and not very wealthy at all, but just constant.
Your family was working class, right?
Super working class, paycheck to paycheck. Like no vacations, no savings, no appetizers, no drinks. You don't really go out to eat. Hand-me-downs from cousins and thrift stores. But we make our bills. We have a home and a yard. We're not living in like an apartment complex or Section 8 housing or something. But with that came, you're going to have to work young and get by, but you also aren't, because you're having to work and figure out everything on your own, we can't necessarily control you because we're not putting the money forward that controls you. We're not paying for your school, we're not paying for your cars. So it's kind of like I was given a lot of openness at a young age because of that. And it's like when a parent smokes cigarettes and then tells their kid, don't smoke cigarettes, and the kid goes, well, you do it, I could do it too. My parents couldn't be like, you can't do this, and it's like, well, I'm working for this, and I want to go to that concert. I'm paying for the CTA train. I know I'm 16. I'm doing this on my own. You aren't. So you don't really have as much of a say as you think. And they kind of realize that young. And I don't know what to do about it because it's always been a struggle. But then people I know that grew up more in a safe situation, almost all of them talk about how the pressure is so immense and the standard of living is so high, and the hotels and the restaurants and the vacations, and it's a lot of pressure. What if you don't want to be like that?
And that the majority of young people you grow up with are actually fine with that track.
Yeah, of course they are.
Like most people continue the track they were raised in.
Sure, most people do.
Yeah,
it's the easiest path of least resistance.
So
it's only natural,
right? So if something's not working at home or just the lifestyles and driving you through, or you happen to have a parent who's an immigrant, which makes this whitewashed thing not work for you, it's a mind fuck. Unless you're okay going into business. And even then, the careers of people my age are relatively just starting, and being happy and like getting your 6-figure job when you're 28, who knows what that looks like when you're 30, 40, or 35.
It comes with a lot of pressure. The people I've met that got really good 6-figure jobs in their 20s, the amount of stress and pressure and like the optics they push out to the world because the standard of living they have is just not, it's stressful. It's not, man, I don't understand it. I don't want that. If I ever was very wealthy, I would never let my kids know. I would live way below means because it messes with them. It sets an unrealistic expectation or a realistic one for them, but it comes with such immense pressure and standards, and they might not pursue music or anything creative because I'm assuming where you come from, a lot of people, medical, lawyer, business, like STEMs.
Oh yeah, or
or maybe like startups, like starting their own business.
The funny thing is, growing up in an affluent area, my family was not like the most insane of the people. Like we didn't live in a McMansion or whatever, which is the Chicago term for those wannabe mansions that are huge and brick, but also just cookie cutter and ugly.
Yeah.
And
you lived near them and knew people from them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was embarrassed to have people at my house for that reason and stuff. But we never actually mentioned or talked about money because everyone was assumed to have it, which is not true even of those areas.
That's the thing about people from those areas is because so much money's around, people you don't talk about when you have it. And all lower income people do is talk about they don't have it. And then everyone in the middle talks about like, it's like right in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like, as my dad would always say, I love my dad, but he'd always say, I don't own my house, the bank does. You know, like that kind of mindset. Just like beaten down by society, just like I don't own anything, like the bank does. Even though they like worked for it and paid the mortgage, they still in their head were like, it just felt like it was a hamster wheel. And it was just turning. You never can get out of it, you know. And which is better than saying like I don't own anything. I live in affordable housing, like or a government house. That's a different story. Yeah. Versus someone like that grows up with you where you grew up. They probably paid off their house on a 15-year mortgage.
Yeah, and you know what's weird about that is that like. I mean, to be on the side of American capitalism, never open this wide. That is always, like you said, like feeling like they don't have enough. Mm-hmm. That's what a fucking horrible.
Did people like the adults where you grew up were there like this unwritten competitions or anything? Did you ever notice that, or were you kind of just not? You're too young to kind of notice.
I was just in the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
You know, like
swimming in a big pool of Kool-Aid.
Everyone was there was this like generic kind of persona that it seems like every parent had, and if they didn't, they'd be the gossip stock of every other parent. Like, oh my God, like, you know, Sandy is a stay-at-home mom and she smokes weed.
Sandy sounds cool.
Retro, craziest thing. Now that I can think for myself and I have security on my own. The coolest parents were the ones who my parents shat on the most.
Oh, I bet.
The ones who I actually felt love from were not you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as a kid, there's no way you're going to be, basically growing up, you won the lottery if you have parents who love you and support you. And if you don't, you got to figure it out once you're like 23 older, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you had your dad, from what I hear, seems like a really solid guy.
Yeah, my mom and dad, very solid people. They did a lot of good things to make sure that we had a good upbringing.
And they were okay with you breaking rules and kind of being
they kind of pushed the
little
rule breaking. They pushed it a lot. A little too much. Because they grew up that way. When you grow up on the streets, and I don't mean unhoused or anything, I just mean like they were latchkey people. And I grew up latchkey, like get out of the house, go get crazy, go climb stuff, go to the park, and then come back at nighttime. It sounds very Leave It to Beaver, but that's literally how I grew up. And yeah, they were quite cool with adventurous things. They pushed it, sleepovers, campouts, bonfires, going to camp every summer. All these things, just like be adventurous, get out there. And the biggest thing I think they did for me, because they couldn't financially afford big things beyond simple things, it was gave me a lot of freedom, and they got rid of like drugs and alcohol in their life, my whole life. I never saw it from like 1990 to probably maybe like 10 years ago.
Wow.
They finally started to drink a little bit, but then they don't really drink at all now. But yeah, they never showed me any of that stuff, and they kept a very pure home, and they were always up in the morning because they're not hungover. I never smelled any weird things. They didn't smoke cigarettes. So they lived a cleaner life. I respect when people do that, because I don't have a problem with people smoking and drinking. But if you don't have any money and you have 3 kids, first of all, that stuff costs money. Cigarettes, weed, and alcohol cost a lot, especially if you got a problem. And to be present with them, because you have to work so much to put food on the table, the best you can do is in those moments be present, because you're not hungover or fiending for that substance. It's all you can really do. So it's a great gift, even though it's a sacrifice, because it means you're not having your fun anymore. But a lot of people don't realize that. And they'll continue to behave that way even though they don't have the means for it. And that there can go the loving, caring family part, and it can completely put you down a different path.
So on this topic, and I was actually going to bring up Art 90 again, but this feels even more relevant. I think something you and I have talked about is that neither of us, I don't know what your policy is now, but I've only been drunk like 1.5 times. Mm-hmm. I've been tipsy a handful of times, and I haven't smoked weed since I was 18. And I remember you saying something like you don't party a lot.
I don't really party a lot, and I don't really get drunk a lot. I always do dry January. I never smoke or drink in January. It's just a great way to start the year.
Yeah.
But I'll drink. I don't like getting drunk. I
Yeah.
do not like the feeling of it. I don't like getting a hangover. So I might get drunk like once a year, like actually drunk. But
Yeah.
I like to drink here and there and just like have or two, But I also have a high tolerance, unfortunately. So it's hard to get drunk. It's expensive too. And I didn't smoke weed till I was 25.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
So I never had it until 25. And I smoke weed here and there. Again, I'd take off this month from it. I didn't really start smoking a little bit more regularly until the pandemic, till 2020, when I was 30 years old, is when I started doing it more. And I'm glad because it gave me a great perspective on the whole thing. I didn't even try tobacco until I was like 30, at all. Cigars or cigarettes or a pipe, whatever. But it gave me a good perspective and it allowed my body and brain to fully grow and develop and really look at it. And I was around all the adults my age when they were all messed up and I wasn't. You could see it. So I think those things are fine and, be careful with it. But yeah, we do have a little similarity of just not doing it that much.
Or maybe approaching it in a little bit of a different way than conventional.
Yeah.
Maybe best.
I never understood at a young age when people were just like, they were handed it and there's like, okay. And I'm like, but like, isn't this the thing we've been told about our whole life to be like careful with?
Yeah.
Like, I know our parents being a little hyperbolic, but like, they're not wrong. Like, I've seen my friends' parents who smoke and drink too much, and they're kind of not all there. Now, I just like would piece it together, but I think it depends on the person's mind and how introspective they are at a young age. Right. It's hard to think that way at 15, and it's hard to actually heed your parents' advice at that age because you almost want to resist. But you go to a couple of parties in high school and you're sober and everyone's drunk, you'll learn quickly, like, man, these guys they're really embarrassing themselves, like badly. And so I think for anyone young who listens, like, just, I'm not saying don't do those things, but take a couple years to really digest and understand what it is and what it does to you.
There's no rush.
You
can always
you got your whole life. Honestly, do drugs whenever you want, but like let your brain and body develop. Truly, like get to 25 and then start experimenting. Also, a good thing about it when it comes to psychedelics and marijuana is if you let your brain develop and stuff, you'll know if you have any psychosis or bipolar by that age because it tends to develop, especially in men. I can't speak for girls.
26.
It definitely develops before 26 and it develops usually between like 17 and 20. And when it starts to have hints of it.
Yeah.
So if you got that far, because those drugs could be very dangerous if you have those problems. So if you got that far and there's no signs of it, no issues, then you could try it, know that it's probably going to be a lot more safe.
What's funny is that, yeah, right. And that's real. Like,
it's very real. It's if you have psychological disorders like bipolar 1 or 2, borderline personality disorder, or schizophrenia, psychosis, anything like that, and depression, it's extreme depression, if you take marijuana or LSD or shrooms or whatever, it could not go well. It could not go well. So I always say, like, do it, just wait until you know. Yeah. Or have a better idea.
The way I did that is I actually sold drugs my senior year of high school as a way.
Why'd you sell drugs?
It was a way to be involved without necessarily doing them.
So you like wanted to be in that scene, but you didn't want to do them?
So,
That's so bizarre.
It's the classic.
I've never heard, this is such a nerdy thing to do. This is what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to do drugs. I'll sell them. I'll commit the worst crime. It's less of a crime to take them than it is to sell them.
You literally go to jail.
You literally get more trouble for selling them than you do taking them.
Yeah, I know.
You were that cool. You're like, I want to be that cool.
Well, it was basically like, it was the classic growing up thing where you have a friend who starts to get into drugs and you've been best friends your whole life. And it's like, well, how do I keep being friends with them? And I had multiple friends like this, and I don't want to fucking like take acid like every week.
I don't think anybody
I don't think anyone should, but that's what they were doing.
They were taking acid every week?
They were taking
like every weekend?
Every drug they could get their hands on, except for opiates, because they were like, oh, we're too smart to,
Were they doing coke?
Probably not till college. Mostly like designer drugs like 2CB, 2CI, DMT.
I never heard of those first two.
Can you imagine doing
2C?
DMT as like a 17-year-old boy with no brain development at all?
No, I cannot. When I first did mushrooms at 28, I did them at my house, and afterwards I was like, I am so glad I waited because it was overwhelming. I mean, my first time I did an eighth, and it's a lot. It's a full-on trip. And the next day I was like, I'm so glad I did them, but I'm so glad I waited because I cannot imagine that experience at 15 or 18. When I heard people doing psychedelics at like 12, 13, 14, I'm like, that is not the place for your mind and body and brain to be in puberty and like halfway through your development. If you're taking it at 13 and you're fully developed by 25, 26, you're halfway there and you're going to throw some of the craziest mind-altering substances into your brain in this very important time. I would not recommend any drugs at those ages, ever.
I agree.
Yeah.
If you need to be involved, sell them. No, I'm kidding. Totally,
So
totally
you just started
not
selling
endorsing
what drug?
that.
Weed, I'm assuming?
So this is a classic. I had like a what's it called? Like a coat with a bunch of pockets, like a canvas coat, and I had a different drug in every pocket. I remember.
My God, is this a cartoon?
And you know what's funny about this? Just a side note for the listeners. I ran a 100%. I do not have addictive personality, and I've never been a regular drug user. And I ran a sober event for 6 years.
Yeah.
100 events, thousands of people, completely sober, no alcohol even.
Yeah.
So it's a weird, contradictory thing.
It's so goofy.
It is goofy.
That is, you were selling drugs at 18, but not doing them.
Not doing them, and I didn't need the money.
Yeah.
So you'd give somebody like, this is a little, I don't know how the times have changed, but per milligram, you could charge $1. So one Adderall, 20 milligrams.
You were selling Adderall?
$20 for one pill.
You were selling Adderall?
Oh my God. So
Well, do you know the statute of limitations on selling?
So I was 17.
Schedule 1?
I was 17.
Oh, you're underage.
I was 17. So like there's no record. I was 17.
This never even happened.
This never even happened. This is all a story.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't get in trouble. They can't prove anything.
No.
You can't.
But
it
also
is
I'm
funny.
talking about my friend Bob this whole time.
Yeah. Bob. No, you're talking about Seth. Another Jewish man.
We grew up with him. Exactly. Another Jewish guy.
By the way, I'm glad I'm an honorary Jewish man now. Thank you.
You are. You look extremely Jewish, and your name is Ben.
My name's Joseph. My name
Joseph. Yeah.
Benjamin Joseph. Benjamin Joseph Arguellestein. There you
yes,
go.
Arguelles
Stein.
Stein. Yeah.
Stein or Steen? What should it be?
Stein.
Okay. Yeah. We have to tell this story because it's the funniest thing ever. First of all, since I have been I'd say the last 10, 12 years, I've been mistaken as Jewish by everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Like literally everyone. To the point where I don't know what to do about it because I get text messages on holidays. My students, I had Jewish students on Yom Kippur, like, oh, hey. I'm like, I don't really even know what this holiday is about, but thanks. And yeah, when I did 23andMe, I was kind of hoping it would come back more Jewish so I can find.
Was there any?
7%.
Okay.
I'm not one of those politicians that wants like a free ride in school because my 7% Jewish. 13% Native American, so I'm more. That's way more. I'm 1/8, which is over 1/8, which is kind of, that's more realistic. That's like great-grandfather is 100%.
That's awesome.
But it's the Mexican side.
Right, yeah.
But so 7% Jewish, but also 13% Polish, and the Jewish part is they show you where it's from. It's from the same area. So that might be more like a 20% Ashkenazi Jew situation because we all know how the Polish, Lithuanian, Ukrainian, Belarusian situation with the Ashkenazi Jew. So it could be 20.
It's also funny how you've learned about more stuff about Jewishness than you probably would have if you looked extremely not Jewish.
Yes,
like
I have.
The fact
I've
that you know
to.
about these Ashkenazi
people have been bringing it up forever. Like, you Jewish? And I'm like, I've had people say, are you like, what is it, Seraphitic Jewish? Sephardic, there you go.
Oh, that's...
Seraphitic is an angel.
Oh, seraphim.
Seraphim?
Seraphim. S-E-R... Oh, a seraph.
A seraph. I don't
whatever.
speak Hebrew.
Hey,
I didn't
Bob.
go to school. I didn't go to Hebrew school. I've never been to temple. Did not have a bar mitzvah. And I enjoy pork and fish from crabs and shells.
I'm not going to ask about...
What? Am I Jewish?
Circumcised! You don't have to answer.
My friend Bob is, so.
Oh, okay. Bob, can you look at that?
Yeah, so I don't, but it's really funny. I've been all over the country. People have thought it. In Mexico, people thought it because there's a heavy Jewish population in a certain part of Mexico City. So when I went there, people were like, "Oh, you're a Jewish Mexican," because they saw my last name, but then saw I looked, and I was like, "Oh my God, I am all these things, and I am none of these things." And don't know what to do. It's a weird thing to be like in this blurry area. People have been trying to figure it out for a while. But one time I was playing a show in Dubuque, Iowa with the band Workwife. And the guy who runs the venue is like half Jewish. And I walked in, it's kind of like, it was a brand new venue, a little DIY, but still legit. And there's like cables everywhere. And I was just like trying to organize everything for them, can't help it. And he just saw me kind of acting frantic. And I'm like, where's the gaff tape? We need gaff tape to cover these cables. And I was like doing like, he walked to me, he's like, so you're Jewish, right? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, why do you think that? He's like, did you see how frantic you were? Trying to make sure everything's organized and making sure everything's working well. It's just like, and he's, he did like a Jewish voice, like, we need to get this going. I'm just like, oh my God. And that was just like the club owner just thought that, just by my behavior. I'm like, I don't know. It's funny though.
It's real. You do have that thing.
Neurotic.
Yeah.
Little, like I'm on Adderall, but I'm not,
Exactly. Something bad's going to happen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a funny one, and I don't know. I've been getting it. The older I get, the more I get it. And living in Chicago, I get it even more now. So I don't really know. It's funny. And then you were like, you can just, you'll be an honorary one.
Exactly. I have a friend named Bundave who's Sikh. So he was wearing a turban.
Yeah.
And I saw him the first thing I said when I saw him, because he was with my friend who's Jewish and most of his friends are Jewish. I was like, another member of the tribe. And I was dead serious. And he's Sikh. He looks completely Indian and was wearing a turban, but he looks like a Sephardic Jew. And he was with my friend who's Jewish. So there are, anyone can be Jewish. Anyone can look Jewish in this modern era. My sister-in-law is 100% Irish Catholic, but she converted to Judaism. So she's Jewish, but
there's
always a look.
There's some giveaways.
Yeah, there's some giveaways.
I get it a lot, and I understand why I get it a lot. I mean, the beard, the hair, the name, the glasses, the being a professor, being in the arts. I mean, these are it doesn't
your hair, literally the amount of chest hair you have, and like. Not a lot
Every
of people
cubic inch of chest hair says much more about your Jude.
1%, 2%, 3%.
I could see the 7% in you. Yeah, I don't know. I have a theory that my grandpa. So for a while we thought we knew we were half Mexican. There's no denying my dad's situation. We always knew that one. But my mom's side, we always thought like, okay, we're German because that's what grandpa told us. Because
evil.
Yeah, evil. The opposite. And the opposite. So my grandpa, who built the home I used to live at in Hickory Hills, my mom's dad, his dad came to America in like 1900. He was born in 1870. He was much older. He had my grandpa at 50. So he was born in 1870, but he was an orphan, and he changed his name to Bauer, which I think means farmer in German, and came to America. So why are you an orphan, changing your name to a German one and coming to America if you're German? Like, why would you do all that? I can see you come to America if you're German, but like the switching of the name and being an orphan.
So he's probably a Jewish person, right?
Yeah, and if we look back on our history, my grandfather looked a little bit more Jewish, and my grandmother didn't. And I think like the English that I'm like 25% English. I think that's from my grandma's side because where they lived and stuff. I don't know. It just way she looked, and I have a feeling that my great grandfather was like mostly Jewish, tried to get out of Germany in that area back in 1900 when it wasn't good, and came to America and switched his name. And he died young. We never got any information when he died. My grandpa was like a kid. And my grandpa kind of grew up as an orphan. And then we always thought we were German. Then we do this test. We're no German at all. Zero. It's the Polish and the Jewish and English and then a little bit of broadly like European. Yeah. So I'm like, I think so. But it's distant.
Yeah.
And not practiced.
Do you speak Spanish?
Not really. No, my dad was of that generation that
kind of trying to cleave it off.
Trying to be American. He just grew up in a bad situation of like his first year of high school was the first year of no more segregation and bringing the white and black kids together, and he's Mexican. So essentially, the last form of education my dad got was when he was in 8th grade, because he didn't learn much in high school because it was a violent, chaotic experience. I think it was traumatizing, and I think he was like, and he was even told at a young age he got in a lot of trouble in Catholic school for speaking Spanish, and he didn't know English.
Oh my God.
So he'd get hit all the time by the nuns. I mean, this is the 50s and 60s in the south side of Chicago. Different era. He got hit all the time by nuns for speaking Spanish, and so I think he just was like, yeah, I think it really got to him, and he was just like English, American rock music. Like he became Caucasian American as much as he could, even though he's as brown as it gets, you know? So I'm like, okay, I wish I learned Spanish. And I'd give him a hard time about it. And he's just like, I don't know. It doesn't even have a reason. And I think it's that reason that he just kind of went through a lot, and not of the generation. And my friends whose parents came here in the 80s, they learned Spanish. They were of a different generation. All that segregation, all of the race stuff, it's always a thing, but it settled down and it simmered down, and it wasn't so dangerous. You were getting a lot more people from the Middle East coming in the 80s. A lot more people were coming, and it just started to get easier for people to still be in their cultures and not try to be as American as possible. But in the 50s and 60s, it was brutal. I mean, if you were a Mexican kid and you were walking down an Irish neighborhood in Chicago and you did not speak English, you're going to get beat up in 1959. In 1989, not so much, you know.
It's interesting because I'm like, my family is so far along the assimilation path at this point, and it seems like a weird pattern is like, this is not the case with everyone, but what I've observed is, you know, you move here, and then your kids, basically the assimilation happens in these waves and these over time, and if it doesn't happen, it's because you're really focused on remaining connected to your heritage and your customs and your traditions and the language. I mean, to not know the language is like all of my great-grandparents spoke Yiddish, and all of my grandparents spoke Yiddish. A random, like, it's like patois. It's like it's a hodgepodge language from Europe that was only spoken by Jewish people, and I don't speak a single lick.
You schmuck.
I'm a schmuck. So my girlfriend is not Jewish, and I've been teaching her all these Yiddish words that I guess I do know some Yiddish. Schmuck, shtick.
I know shtick and schmuck.
You probably know schlep.
Schlep, I know that. You just got to put a in front of something. Schmeckel. Schloppy. My favorite Jewish food is sloppy joes.
Now it's Jewish.
That's good. Sloppy Josephs. I'm done. We have been just talking about mostly everything, but not as much music, which is kind of funny. You know why it's funny is I noticed that with a lot of musicians that come on here, we do a little bit of music and then we talk about everything else because all we ever do is music.
Yeah.
And you almost want to talk about other things that are interesting to you with another person.
Yeah.
Besides the thing that's all we do.
That's interesting.
You know,
let's talk about music.
We're talking about more music.
Let's do it.
Segue back into it. So when did you start playing music, and what was your first instrument?
I started. So my dad is a musician. He ran the guitar program at the Old Town School of Folk Music, which is like Chicago.
Yeah, and up in
staple.
Lincoln Square.
Yep, exactly.
I might be. Potentially helping. Well, I'm helping them develop an audio production program.
Ooh, and might be such a good idea.
Teaching some classes.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I just met with them about it because, they reached out and I was like, let's do it. But yeah, that's not confirmed yet, but it is an idea.
Shout out Old Town School. Yeah. And also World Music Wednesdays. Every Wednesday is a free concert every year.
Yeah.
From around the world, which is pretty amazing.
That's sick.
And that's really cool. I'm excited to hear. So
he taught there?
My dad, he was the head of the guitar program, meaning I don't actually know what that means. That's just what I heard my entire life.
He was just in charge of the curriculums and stuff and scheduling maybe.
And he also started the gigging program, which was basically how teachers at the Old Town School were connected to people who needed musicians. So people would be like, oh, we need a guitarist. Let's go to the Old Town School. They must have a guitarist for us. So he was there for like 20 years, I think. So before I was born, actually.
Wow.
He stopped.
Oh, so he had you older.
Yeah, he was 42.
Classic.
So yeah, have your whole
classic artist lifestyle. My dad had me at 35, mostly
which is old.
It is, especially back then. This was the 80s, and I think it's just because he lived a wild life. You know, he just liked to go out and camp and party. He just didn't want to settle down. He didn't have a kid till 30. in the 80s, you know. So he was kind of like we are now. He was ahead of the time. He's a trailblazer. He's a pioneer.
That's awesome.
But yeah, your dad is too. He had you younger. Do you have an older sibling or younger?
I have one older brother. He's 31.
Okay.
Very different than me. Works at the Pentagon.
Wait. What?
Yep.
We got to talk about this.
Yep.
Does he know if it was actually hit or wasn't it just a bomb? He's like, yeah, I actually learned that during my interview. No.
Yeah, right.
What does he do there?
So I have to preface that by saying he also worked for a senator right before and helped write the bill that was about enabling transgender people to serve in the military. So he's not all bad. He's actually not a bad guy. He's a great guy.
This is crazy.
Hi, Mitchell. I love you.
Wait. So what did he do with a bill for a senator?
Yeah.
Which senator? What
Jackie
state?
Spear.
What state?
Which is New York.
New York?
Yeah.
Does he live out there?
He lives in D.C. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's a
hardcore. He commutes from Chicago to the Pentagon.
They fly him out.
That's cool though. So he what does he do for the Pentagon?
He is the
Or you're not allowed
chief
to
of
say.
staff for the Undersecretary of Defense of the U.S. He's pretty high up.
Mic drop. What the hell?
Yeah. He's very different than me. The funny thing is he's very creative and he like writes songs all the time and send them to me. But
wait. Can't just
so he's the let me make sure I get that right. He is the chief of staff for the Undersecretary of Defense. Yeah.
What's the
civilian
Undersecretary?
branch. So there's the Secretary of Defense. There might be multiple undersecretaries as well. But I actually don't know. I don't know.
Is it kind of like the mob where there's the boss and the underboss?
Yeah, and probably 10. I actually don't know, but I'm sure there's like 10 undersecretaries.
But he's
high up.
Yeah, but at 31, you would not expect him to be too high up.
No.
Because it takes time.
It takes time.
In those worlds. You don't get to the crazy stuff till like your 40s and 50s.
Right.
But did he start into politics young, like right out of college?
Yeah, so he went to college for, he was in the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown, which is a really common place for people to go if they're interested in that. And I think right after he started working for Congresswoman, it's been a while, oh my God, he's going to be mad at me for not remembering this. I'll get back to you. Bob, maybe can you look this up? Mitchell Hochberg.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Hater Bob.
So he's been doing it for his whole life, and it's always been really,
That's cool.
yeah. He interviewed Barack Obama when he was like 8 for like Scholastic Kids. So
His
he's
name is
always
Mitchell?
been Mitchell Hochberg. Yeah,
Mitchell Hochberg, when you hear this,
with one L.
when I come to D.C. to,
Just don't even
to
acknowledge
film
that.
and record bands, you're
Yeah,
going to be on this
hit him up.
podcast.
100%.
And you're going to tell me all the secrets. You're going to tell me about the aliens.
He is.
You're going to tell me about the bombs. You're going to tell me about who's got what.
Ben, please, if you go to DC, please do it with him. He is a huge talker, and it would be hilarious
I
to
would
see
love
you put
to.
him on the spot.
Oh, I have nothing to lose. I mean, I have no allegiance to anything but freedom of
and he's
speech
not
and
a politician,
conversation.
so he's not giving you like total
Right.
BS.
He works behind the scenes.
Yeah.
He's not a politician.
Yeah.
Good. He's not kissing hands and shaking babies. That's not how it goes. Shaking hands.
Shaking.
You take a picture, you start shaking the baby. That's wild. It's always funny when someone is just like directly connected to someone in like a very intense situation.
Yeah, like he had 4th of July celebration. He party hopped different 4-star generals' houses, and we were all invited to go.
You went?
I didn't go, but
Why
I was
wouldn't
invited.
you go to that?
I
Next
wasn't really
time I'll
talking to
take
my
your
parents
place.
at the time.
Oh. I will hop in and be you because I could look like you, Jewish.
Yeah,
you know, so
exactly,
it's all good.
exactly.
So I will
Give
be
me my
you.
clothes. Hi.
Hi.
Saxophone strap. Just wear the saxophone neck strap everywhere you go.
My name is Benjamin Joseph
Hochberg. We definitely have one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Is your
cool.
middle name Joseph?
Yeah. You thought I was kidding? You
Dude.
thought I was kidding?
I did think you were kidding.
No, it's Benjamin. Like right out the gate,
ridiculous.
it's Jewish, Spanish.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay,
cool.
so wow, small world.
Yeah.
I always love when I find out someone has got a friend directly connected, or you just meet someone who like, yeah, I used to do this and now I don't anymore. I remember a buddy of mine, really good friend of mine, his wife's dad has a completely different life and career now. Successful store owner, but before that, in like the 60s, he's older. He was in charge. He would like go into these. He worked for the military, high up, and he was in charge of like bombs, big bombs, and like nuclear warheads, like turning the key in these bunkers in like Nevada and Utah and stuff. Like that, he was that guy. And I remember I was talking at their wedding reception rehearsal thing, and I'm just talking to him like this, and he's telling me, I'm like, what the? I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait a minute, like the classic turn the key at the same time.
Wow.
Like he was one of those guys for like big bombs, serious stuff, underground in bunkers, wild things. And yeah, you just meet. I mean, someone does these things. All the stuff we think about, someone does it. Sometimes you meet them, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
But where you tend to meet them are certain circles. And those certain circles tend to be where money is. Different echelons of society. And where there's more money, you'll meet more wild jobs where someone is a professional this or that. And yeah, it's getting weird out there.
I have to name drop one more relative.
Name drop all day.
Because I was actually checking out one of your episodes, and you guys were talking about the Beats.
The Beats? Like
Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac.
Oh, yeah,
and all
yeah.
those people.
What episode?
Aaron Paulson.
Oh, yeah. He's a cool guy.
Yeah. And if you've ever heard of Larry Rivers, he's a well-known American painter. Like his work is at the Art in every museum. And he was friends with Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac. They're in documentaries together, and he's my great uncle.
Oh.
And he was roommates with Miles Davis at Juilliard, and like,
whoa.
But he's really known because he was like a really influential American painter.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool.
He's your great uncle?
My great uncle.
Which side?
So my grandpa's first cousin.
On which side?
On my dad's side.
So your dad's uncle.
My dad's, I guess that's my
Well, his first
grandpa's
cousin, so it'd be like your dad's like second cousin?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how that
Something
works.
like that.
But for him, it feels like it's his uncle.
Exactly.
Like,
and he was
my mom's cousins feel like my aunts and uncles.
Exactly.
It's all the same.
He was in the family, and it's New York, so
That's
everyone's
cool,
hanging
though.
out all the time.
That's
yeah.
awesome. When did your parents come to Chicago, or like family come to Chicago?
Yeah, so everyone was East Coasters, like New York City, and then my dad moved here when he was like 22, and he's now 72, so it's been a while.
For school or work?
His parents had moved here I have no freaking clue why, but they did.
Must be work. I mean, back then.
Must be work.
That's why else do you move?
Right.
In 1970.
Not for the weather.
What, in 1973, 74? He
Something
moved
like
here?
that.
Yeah.
And my mom moved here to go to Northwestern Business School.
Classic.
Yep.
Classic.
Very classic North Shore story.
EMBA?
MBA.
MBA, my bad.
Yep.
My bad. Threw the in there. Yeah. No, I mean, Northwestern, whenever I go on my Wikipedia wormholes, and it's a funny thing I like to do. I like to find people's, like, who they are, where they're from, their ethnicity, and then try to guess what college they went to. And if someone went to Chicago and they're Jewish, they went to Northwestern.
Or Chicago.
But because the population of Jewish people are higher on the north side, it usually is Northwestern.
Nowadays, you're going to get a lot of Columbia and DePaul, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will, because they don't want to follow those trends. Like, oh, I gotta go to Northwestern.
They're artistic.
They're artistic. They're allowed to be now.
Yeah.
Now they don't have to go in the STEMs and medical and be lawyers, Yeah. No, because for those who don't know, Chicago's north side has a large Jewish population.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely the biggest one in the whole area. So a lot of the people, and Northwestern's up there, so they tended to go there. But yeah, you have Chicago. There's also a huge Jewish population.
I think Northwestern is 20% Jewish, the student body.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I would like.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Every time I meet someone who's Jewish, they like went there. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not trying to stereotype. I mean, it's not a bad stereotype that you're educated, went to one of the best schools in the country, but like, come on. Yeah, and you do that. You meet someone who went to the Art Institute. Their parents are rich. The Art Institute is it's mostly female population, and a big chunk of it is Asian population.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But yeah, fine arts is mostly women leading. Mostly
I did not know that.
more women prominent than. It's just like how you can say like the trades are mostly men. It's like fine arts are mostly women. There's exceptions, but that's usually how it is. We don't have to talk about that. I could explain why I think it is that way, but it is what it is. Yeah, and also the Art Institute, because that's where I went to grad school. Had a lot of Jewish people too, but that's the arts.
Yeah.
It just is. But that is interesting.
Yeah.
Your great uncle.
Yeah.
Was that like that prominent?
And
with
then
those people?
another relative, Yip Harburg, which is Yip, his real name is Isaac Hochberg, wrote like music for Somewhere Over the Rainbow and like all the Wizard of
Who's
Oz
this guy?
music. He's another relative.
Who is he to you?
I actually don't know.
His
He's
name is
older. He was born in
Isaac?
the 1800s.
Isaac Hochberg?
Yip Harburg was his like Hollywood name,
Yip.
but his real name is Yitzhak Hochberg.
Wait. Say the first one.
Yeah. Yip, Y-I-P. So a lot of Jewish people like anglicize their name, like Bob Dylan. Fucking his real name is Robert Zimmerman.
Yeah, you didn't want to be Jewish in Hollywood in the 40s and 30s.
Yeah,
it wasn't
in yet.
It wasn't.
Although everyone freaking
apparently you don't want to be it now. Apparently,
yeah, right? Yeah.
How do you feel about that? What's up?
Like
with
the hiding your name.
No,
your
like the new this larger reoccurring anti-Semitic
of like the
nonsense.
Hollywood is controlled by
just everything that's going on right now. So much anti-Semitic nonsense.
I feel like it's like it always is. It's like a scapegoat for feelings you have about probably something else, and it's easy to same with like the trans community is like taking the brunt for a lot of hate, even though they're not. It's a tiny amount of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It definitely causes some introspection on my part. You know, it definitely. Jewish people had the choice if you were white to do the white flight thing, and Jewish people used to like Lawndale. All these neighborhoods in Chicago now that are like predominantly black used to be like Austin, Lawndale used to be really Inglewood used to be really Jewish, and then the white flight thing happened. So Jews kind of left their culture and their identity as outsiders in America in the world, and became white in America. And it's confusing and complicated because that is part of why Jewish people have been so physically safe and have done so well in America is because they were able to be white. That's the major oversimplification of it.
Sure.
But it comes with consequences. Like there's a pain. I don't know if you've experienced this or whatever, but of hiding or dissociating from your real identity. And not that it's like, I'm Jewish. I'm like secretly like no. It's really subtle. It's really subtle. Like the fact that I know a fucking million Yiddish words, but I don't say them when I'm around. Like there's code shifting. And it's so subtle and it's so subliminal. It's also complicated because I grew up in a predominantly white area. So what is authentic? What is not authentic? Like I am a white dude who played fucking Call of Duty in a basement, with my friends.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like swore at the TV and like shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But at the same time, there's this whole like, all of my grandpa's family was killed. Great grandpa's family was killed in the Holocaust. Like, there's there's so much there, history, food, culture, traditions, holidays. But everywhere I go, I'm read and interacted with as just like a white Christian who doesn't have any of that stuff. And that stuff, nobody gets it. Like, unless you explain, and you have to explain over the course of years and take them to the museums and, they have to care.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So my girlfriend is not Jewish. And so it's been and she's from Nebraska, like white farmer land.
Yeah.
They don't even, I looked up, they don't even have like a Holocaust museum in Omaha, and every major city has a Holocaust museum.
I believe it. It's not that major city.
You cannot tell her that.
I mean,
you're right.
Bless that heart over there in Omaha, corn fed. I love it.
Yeah.
Come on now.
No. I feel like that's.
Come on now.
I feel like Jewish people in the U.S. I'm majorly stereotyping, but a lot of Jewish people reconnect with or connect, especially Jewish artists, go through a period of really trying to figure out what it means to them that they are Jewish. Bob Dylan went to fucking Israel, whatever.
I just don't get the hate and I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
I just don't understand like generalizing groups and just like being mad at an idea or a concept or historical situation of a group. Now I get subgroups of groups that have an identity that might be like a terrorist group or a gang. That's one thing. But just overall, millions of people who are just like living a culture that they grew up with in a religion and a heritage. It just doesn't make sense to generalize and be mad at people. A lot of cultures, especially as of recently, have prioritized certain things and very strict. A lot of African immigrants, very strict on their kids to, I know a lot of them, to be doctors, lawyers, and like at the highest level.
Right.
Like they don't even care about master's degrees. Like you better get a PhD, a doctorate, or a medical degree. Like that's a high standard. And Jewish people, I mean, every culture that has been successful, they've stuck with each other. They help each other out. Go to that dentist. Go to that restaurant. It's Jewish. So maybe we can help each other out. We can be there for each other. Italian people did it in Little Italy in New York for the mob.
Jewish and black people were a lot closer in Chicago before Jewish people did the white flight thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was watching this documentary about John Gotti on Netflix. The Mafia just fascinates me so much. It's a wild place. It's such a fascinating thing. I also like to laugh at a lot of this stuff because some of these guys, it's like, oh, no wonder they did that. They were very poor, didn't finish like the 6th grade because it's 1955 and their parents just got here from Naples. Like, and they're just like, yeah, I'll fucking kill you. They're like kind of, some of these guys are just like not, they're, to be nice, they're just dumb. They're not educated. They didn't go to school. They never worked any normal job. And that's all they've ever known. So they got wrapped up in that life. But what I'm getting at is in the show, they're talking to old grandmas in Little Italy in the 80s. And they love the mob. They love, because they're like, it's safe. Our neighborhoods are safe. There's no crime. No one messes with us. No one steals anything. They're fully protected because they all work with each other. Their laundromats, their restaurants, their check into cashes, their banks. It's all Italian. Everyone keeps an eye on each other. No one messes with each other. And I'm sure Jewish people have been doing that forever. But it's like people in certain groups push a lot harder. I know a lot of people who are of East Asian descent, and they push really hard on stems.
Right.
It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. They do very well in that world. And that's why get mad at people who are just trying to better themselves? I just don't get it.
I was hearing actually Cornel West talk about anti-Semitism. You know who he is?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And he's, was it Cornel West or freaking Neil deGrasse Tyson? I think it was it was Cornel West, but Neil deGrasse Tyson has been talking more about like contemporary social issues. My bad for confusing them. Very different. Yeah. But basically he was saying that anti-Semitism is one of the most to blame your problems on a population that is not causing your problems is one of the most harmful things you could do for yourself, because it's not actually going to improve one's circumstances. And it was a classic thing when things were going wrong in Europe, in different countries. Who's the cause of it? It's the Jewish people, so that the politicians and the people in power had a scapegoat so that people did not realize who and what was actually causing their problems.
Do you know why I originally went towards blaming Jewish people?
It's such a long history.
It is. That's why I don't.
Yeah. I know one part of it is that in certain countries, Jewish people were limited as to what their occupations could be. Mm-hmm. And they would often be allowed to do occupations where they would be the face, like the person who has to close down someone's home, or the bank. Like it was like not Christian or something to handle money between people.
I've
or
heard about
debt.
that.
I never
Jewish
knew people had to collect the debt. Like
I've heard that. I never knew that there was validity behind it, because it almost sounded too easy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they got into banking and finance because in 1500 people didn't want to handle money. I'm like, really?
My guess is that's like
easy?
One piece of a very large puzzle, where at the end of the day, just like gypsies, they were these weird outsiders, so few of them. So rumors, anyone who's like an outsider in anything, rumors and ideas about who and what they are, and fantasies about what these people are doing with their hats and their beards behind, they must be drinking the blood of our children, like rumor. That's partly how I see it, is that things you don't know, you make up stories about. And I think people like having a scapegoat. Like, even in a microcosm, I was a scapegoat in my nuclear family. So I kind of witnessed how that works on a tiny scale.
Why were you a scapegoat? What do you mean by that?
I was just the real reason is because they wanted to have a scapegoat, and I was a convenient scapegoat. But I think, my brother's a rule follower. I came along, and I'm just by nature.
You have to be to make sure you pass that background check to work at the Pentagon. You better be following some rules.
Exactly. So I think people anywhere want to have a scapegoat, and Jewish people were a scapegoat. I mean, there's books written about this, and
sure.
I could not write a consummate report on why and how anti-Semitism perseverates through the years, but I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Jews are a minority, and they cannot advocate for themselves everywhere. Like, they need allies in order to have people understand that they are just people. And there are jerky Jewish people. There are also jerky of every other type of people.
Yeah.
And the only thing that separates them is that their culture is different.
Yeah.
And
I've been called strange Jewish slurs.
Are you serious?
Because people thought I was Jewish. I've been called a cheap Jew bag.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
You're not even Jewish.
No, well, not enough.
I haven't even been called a Jewish slur. Actually, once.
Yeah.
Once. But it was in high school where somebody was probably just testing out like 4chan, like lingo.
I was called it. It was obnoxious. I don't take offense to anything because words can hurt. I don't like the phrase like sticks and stones may break bones, but words will never hurt me. It's like, what year is it? Who gets hurt with sticks and stones? It's like most people get hurt with words. Words is the only way we get hurt now because it's so hard to, no one gets physically hurt as much anymore because there's cameras everywhere. So it's all about words. Words can hurt, but yeah, you really can't let them get to you because people don't know anything. So I was like, that's a weird thing to say. I blocked the person. They did apologize eventually.
It was on social media.
It was through messaging.
Gotcha.
It's someone I knew, kind of knew, but it doesn't matter. But it's weird because I'm like, man, if I was that'd probably hurt a lot more.
Right.
But it didn't really hurt. It was just kind of a really messed up thing to say.
I have a similar experience, which is in this era, questioning one's sexuality and just being like, well, I'm a conglomeration of all . So the first and only time I've ever given my number to a guy who asked for it, I then later kind of reneged on it, and I was just like, actually, I texted him. I was like, actually, I'm not interested. And he called me a faggot. He was like, you fucking faggot. Like, why did you give me your number then? Which was so interesting. Because like you, there was nowhere for that insult to hit because I'm not of that identity. I don't see myself in that way. But it was coming from somebody who themselves was gay. So that was really sad.
Thought you were gay or you?
No. So he was gay.
He was gay.
He was 100% gay.
And you gave him...
And he asked for my number.
Okay.
And I was like in this
In a
zone.
romantic way?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it now. I'm making sense.
He even like, I guess I didn't tell the story that thoroughly. We're at a bar, scene live. Actually, I had just performed, and I actually started talking to him in order to talk to his female friend, who I thought was cute. And then it wound up just becoming...
This is a wild story.
I know, it is pretty crazy.
So you gave him your number, then you realized, maybe not. And then
he texted me probably like 6 or 7 times over the course of like 2 days. And I wasn't responding. And then I was finally like, all right, I need to set a boundary because I'm actually realizing I'm not. I gave him my number, wanted to see how that would feel for myself. And it was genuine, but then I was like, I'm not feeling this.
Yeah.
And and then he texted me like, you fucking faggot. Like,
wow.
I'm saying this slur because it's what he said to me.
Yeah, I get it.
And that was, I don't know, that was just like your story. That was a weird experience because he's really the one who is hurting himself by calling me that.
Yeah.
Because I am not, I don't identify as gay. So that's my weird experience. Like, I guess any of us, and that shows how silly it is.
Yeah.
Because it's not even true.
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to put these stereotypes on you, and it literally shows you how made up they are.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Black Klansman?
Yes, I have.
Dude,
It was
exactly.
great. Yeah. It's a
Like,
funny movie.
Such a good movie.
Yeah.
And how like the whole time he thinks he's interacting with a white person, but he's interacting with a black person. It just shows it's all, we don't know people unless we get to know them.
Absolutely. That's why I like podcasting so much, not just doing them or being on them, but listening to them, because you get to listen to 1, 2, 3, 4, however many people. It's usually 1 to 3 people talking, long form, breaking down stuff, revealing things, realizing things, remembering things, telling stories that you normally would never ever hear. Maybe telling a story other people can hear what we just said, and they will relate, especially if they're minorities or of different religions. They're going to be like, oh yeah, that's happened to me a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting to talk to women in these circles because they have wild stories. They like, I think I could count on like my hand how many times a woman has said something to me in public. It's like twice.
Yeah.
Good or bad. Like, it doesn't happen ever. But women, I mean, they'll every time you see them, like, yep, this happened today, and that happened today, and I went to Whole Foods, and then the store, and it's just this guy and that guy and this, and I'm just like,
and they're so,
I'm like, oh, that's exhausting. It's like,
it's crazy,
and it comes with a bit more of a threat.
Yeah.
If a woman says something to me, I'm not even threatened. It might be annoying. I'm not threatened, like on a physical level.
Right.
But they get the verbal annoyance and a physical threat that's behind it. Because if they do say something, what if the person attacks them? They can't defend themselves. So, and that's it's a little different because it's usually something more sexual, not something based on race. But it's along the same unnecessary and sad pressures that are put on to people who are just trying to exist. And full circle to Jewish people and anti-Semitism, I don't get it. It's been an issue for so long. I don't understand it. I don't get any of racism and sexism and xenophobia. All of it is just so bizarre to me. And I mean, a lot of people who will say something about Mexican people coming here from Mexico, which is very complicated, and it resonates with me because that's how my grandpa came here illegally, and other people in my family and a lot of my friends' parents, some legal, some illegal. But they're not taking the jobs that anybody wants, not even close. They're not all murderers and rapists.
It's fucking
It's a scapegoat. It's like,
look, we're getting something done by not letting people come into the country. It's like, that's not why. That is not, actually, it's part of what makes America interesting.
what?
That we have immigrants and people of all countries.
Yeah.
That's why our culture is so incredible. And
I do wish everyone could come in a legal manner just
sure.
to make it safe and organize it all,
Yeah.
just to keep track of stuff. It'll be better in the long run for everyone if that's how it is. But the people who are sneaking in and are working the yard and the food jobs in Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, they're just, all of them, or most of them, are working all the terrible jobs that nobody else wants to do for a quarter of the price with no benefits and no taxes. And who's hiring them? Like wealthier white people. Like, look at people taking care of people's homes. Who's cleaning them? In Chicago, I can't give you a stat, but I would say 95% of everyone who's cleaning a home is either Polish or Mexican. How do I know that? Because I grew up with those people, and I am those people. So that's how I know. And so many of my friends who are girls, their moms, they clean houses. Or Mexican, they clean houses. Or they took care of people. And the dads, roofing, concrete, yard work, machine work. Like all unskilled labor, not documented, not good jobs, dangerous, not healthy, no insurance. Like the jobs that nobody wants to do. In fact, don't blame them. You should blame the white, rich, massive corporations that put all those jobs in other countries. And now no American wants to do it for $10 an hour, So the poor immigrants are just filling that vacuum. That's all they're doing, It's a really complicated situation. We're like,
it really is.
I'm so glad I'm in the arts because I only know so much about it. I only know what I live and what people tell me because I can't trust what I hear on the internet, sadly.
Yeah.
A
somewhat adjacent music-related thing related to this is
somehow
is I rented a practice room at Music Garage, which and it was me and like 7 other people, and I got kicked out of the practice room.
Why?
I think I was just I think I was a scapegoat. No. So let me tell you what I did, and let's see if you would have kicked me out. Ready?
Got it. Yeah. So it's the same band?
No. So check this out. It was the practice room. The main person who had the lease, who I believe was just paying the same as any of us, but he was just on the lease. It was him and about 6 other people, including me, who rented it on his lease from him with him.
Yeah.
What I like is classic kind of a million musicians renting a space thing. And so I the first thing was I forgot to lock the door. This was my very first time going to the practice room, and I forgot to lock the door. Okay. That sucks. At the same time, there's cameras everywhere in that place. Like, it sucks, but it's also not like leaving your car keys in your car. It's not like, whatever, it sucks. I'm not even trying to, I didn't do it again after that, right?
It happens.
It happens.
Happens.
It happened. It was my very first time. Didn't happen again. Another time is I accidentally walked in on him while he was practicing. I was like, oh shit, I forgot to check the schedule. Again, this is like within the first like month of being there. So it's also my first time renting a practice room. So I'm just kind of like, how the fuck does this work? Whatever. And then the last thing was I left my keyboard out thinking it would be a generous thing, to leave this nice keyboard out for everyone else to use. And then he called me, yelling at me, saying like, I've never had this happen before. Like these 3 things back to back to back. Like I have to kick you out. And it was like, it made this very dramatic display of it which lets me know it's not about this. It's about something else in your life that you're fucking pissed about.
Yeah.
Because,
definitely.
okay, I'll just go get a different practice room. Like, it's really not that big of a deal to me or you. What's a big deal is that you're fucking yelling at another grown man over, like, stupid
crappy
shit.
stuff. Yeah.
Nothing. He's like, I just got back from tour and I have to deal with this shit. It's like, you're probably just pissed because you share a practice room with 7 people and you're like 50. Like, whatever. It's his stuff to deal with. It's his, whatever. I got kicked out. And this is going to connect because I registered that as a very classic male kind of thing. Like a guy just yelling at you like that. And so that inspired me to put on an event called Power Chords, celebrating women in music in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, and that felt really good. Basically, whenever I experience like one of these bullshit things, it makes me feel, it helps me and helps me feel like I'm shifting things to do something to counteract it, even if it's like small. That was a big thing. But I was just so pissed. I was like, all right, fuck you. Like, this is clearly toxic masculinity. I'm going to put on a whole fucking event celebrating women because, like, I doubt you ever call women to play and, like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't need to judge him.
I feel you.
But I was just, from that frustration came that event. And I guess I'm proud of myself for alchemizing. Like, I guess that's what a lot of art is like taking, oh my God, full circle. Taking hard things and kind of reshaping them into something useful to you and others.
Yeah.
Like emotions, hard emotions and stuff.
I agree with you. I resonate with what you said. When something is negative happening to me or someone near me, I try to take that and make it part of DZ Fest, or something I do. Like, find a better way. Like, oh, all right, don't make that mistake again. Let's do something to like pinpoint that issue in society, either in the community, the neighborhood, or something at large, and twist it and make it work. You do that long enough, you eventually create your thing. People call it a brand. I don't know. But you create your thing if you keep doing that. That's a problem. Let's correct that. That's a problem. Let's correct that. Learning from your mistakes. With the musicians I've worked with and everything, I would say 9 times out of 10, if someone behaves that way, they're going through something in life, and you're the thing that just made them snap in that moment. Because all that stuff's so petty. At the very least, you would have a conversation about it and be like heavily warned. Like, listen, appreciate the piano thing, but when we practice, we just want a clean slate. Just don't leave anything out. And try to always lock it. And just always have a Google Doc sheet. Try to always keep your eye on the schedule.
Of course.
And then, like, let's just go from here. Yeah. Like bring it up to you. Let you know that these 3 things happen quickly. But, like, let's go over it again. Understand we're all adults. Boom. Instead of just snap. The snap is, there's a lot of things. There's anxiety in people with the snap. There's anger management. There's mental illnesses.
Entitlement.
There's entitlement. There's spoiled, rotten little baby dicks out there.
Jealousy.
That have gotten everything handed them their whole life, so if it doesn't work out, they have to throw a temper tantrum. Those are very real. In fact, it's one of the worst things that everyone in society like hates and never wants to be, is like the spoiled rich kid. It's the worst. Because you had everything given to you and you still suck. Like, not cool. Why is this happening to you? And that's real too. A privilege. So, I don't know. But then, if that's how they are and that's how they want to be, you're better off without those people in your life, you know? Hope, wish the best, and move on. That's all you can do. But it happens way less the older I get, like that kind of stuff. You know? But it also could change the face. It could just be more nefarious, like adult, slights that are very like mature and like integral to what you're doing and stuff. Where when you're young, you're not smart enough or experienced enough to know how to do that. You don't get as cunning as you do when you get older. But I like to believe the best in people. That's not most people, No. Yeah. Yeah. Have you had any other issues like in the music scene or anything like that, with things like that, or is it just little things like that?
Yeah. Growing up, when more so, I think as like kids, when you have no grip on your own issues, so you're just projecting everything on everyone else. Yeah.
We let kids do that because they're like, that's how you learn. You do that. Someone either yells at you, ignores you, or slaps you.
Breaks up with you.
Or breaks up. I'm talking, well, how old were you?
Oh, like the whole...
the whole thing.
Yeah.
From zero to...
The whole thing.
From 0 to Xanax sales, Was Xanax one of them?
Yeah.
Where did you get these things? We're talking about drugs selling now.
Classified.
PirateBay.se.
I'll tell you after.
Okay. Oh, man. I miss PirateBay.se. Is that still around?
Yeah. Actually, I don't know. I used that up until I was like 24.
My friend Bob used it a lot until
Like an imaginary Bob or an actual yeah.
imaginary Bob. My buddy Bob used PirateBay.sc for a while. Yeah, I think he stopped in like 2014.
Yeah. I think
People listening are like, what are they talking about? Bob is a metaphor for us. For those who don't get it.
so. I feel like music. I feel like every industry has issues of jealousy, of competition, of gossip. This just happens to be the one we're in, I think.
Sure.
You know?
It does happen.
It also deals with emotions.
Oh, it deals with money.
Money.
You deal with money, you got problems.
We just got to say it what it is. If somebody is more successful, ultimately that means they have. Well, wait. Success is relative. Let me.
Success and money are not
They're not
mutually
the same.
exclusive. They're not married. They're close.
But if
they're not
somebody
the same.
is on like, has all these musical accolades, and I feel a feeling of jealousy, I don't actually want to be them. I don't actually want to be in their life. And jealousy is natural. So I'm trying to, I have to have compassion for myself, or whatever. And it's probably usually because I'm not fulfilling myself in my own life in some way. But then there's also literal money. Like, and it's not even a conscious thing. It's just that our society values people who make more money.
Yeah.
Our society does. And it's painful,
It's a disease a little bit. It's a
it's
little
an illness,
obsessive.
right? Yeah.
For sure. It's gone too far. It's gone too far. I mean, I think a good middle ground is a little bit of everything we do.
Yeah.
With just a lot more understanding of it. And not necessarily control, but some limits. I mean, capitalism does move the needle in creativity and progress and innovation and technology, but it also halts it a lot. The medical industry is halted by capitalism because of big pharma and insurance. But it also has been pushed a lot through technology and MRIs and AI and doctor knowledge. So it's like this weird back and forth. They're both issues. The banking system as well. Big companies as well. Do these companies need to make as much money as they do? No, they don't. If they are, it's because the people working at the bottom are just not getting paid well. They don't have a living wage, like we used to in the 50s and 60s, the best economic time in American history, most likely, where our grandparents were like not going to college, not even finishing high school, and then getting a nice job at a warehouse, and they like somehow buy a car, a second car, own a home, get a little cottage in Indiana for $5,000 or on Lake Michigan back when no one did yet. Like, it's crazy when I hear about some of my friends and their grandparents. Like, one of my good friends, their grandparent got a cottage on Lake Michigan. Amazing. I've been there. It's one of the coolest places ever. It's beautiful. But they got it in like the 40s when it was probably like 20 grand. It's now like millions of dollars. Millions and millions of dollars. It's not even a nice cottage. I love it, but it's not like fancy. It's a cottage from the 40s that was not expensive. So it's nothing great. But because of the time that they got it, and now the neighbor next to them is a CEO and like president of a pharmaceutical company, and their place is like $40 million. And it's this old cottage, and this is everyday people. Like her parents are teachers. They can't afford this place. They just got it from the grandparent who got it cheap back in the day. We don't live in that world anymore. Like our generation cannot. None of that stuff ever exists for us, ever, and never will again. It's unfortunate, and it's all because of this hunger and imbalance of money married with inflation. And I wish it just wasn't so out of control. I don't mind people making more money, people making less, especially based on effort and a meritocracy. Who's great at something will be compensated better. That's fine. It's just the stretch of it and the gaps of it have gotten just unbelievably gross. Like just so far out of hand. It's not good. I don't know where this goes. It's not healthy. It's not helping art. It's not helping music. It's not helping really anybody.
Yeah. One thing I think about is like social media.
Sure.
I'm sure have you seen The Social Dilemma?
Yes,
yeah.
I have, yeah.
Like basically it's like common knowledge now that like the algorithm in places like Myanmar has literally fueled genocide by showing people and like flat earthers and like that basically the algorithm creates extremist groups both in a good way, like around holistic psychology and also in a toxic way. Like,
Well, if I want to discover bands, I go on
It's so
Instagram,
great.
and because all I do is look at music, they just feed me new bands to keep looking for
It's
and
such
reach
an
out
amazing
to.
tool.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
benefits, but I deliberately curate my algorithm
Yeah.
to favor me. I deliberately ignore the weird stuff that's going to
Yeah.
like poison my algorithm.
So I'm like on the cusp of having grown up on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the benefit of the older millennials, or like the middle millennials, in their life experience, and me to some extent, because I had limited technology use, is having grown up in a world without technology. It's a lot easier to be able to choose what is actually benefiting you,
Yes, it is.
and ignore what is not.
That's a great observation. You are 100% correct.
And have moderation too, because you didn't grow up with that being your
baseline. Yeah. No, I had none. I had none. And it's not only when you were born, it's how you were
raised.
And what I mean by
people are
that,
still raised by that.
exactly. What I mean by that is your financial situation. Because back then, to have technology, you actually had to have money. Now, apparently, everyone has, no matter how poor you are, everyone has, Beats by Dre or AirPods and an iPhone and Jordans. I'm like, I thought we didn't have money. Why do we have $5,000 worth of things on our purse, an iWatch or an Apple Watch or whatever? Back then, to have the modern technology, you had to have the money. People who were lower income just didn't have it. So where I grew up in my homes, no technology. I had Sega Genesis and a tube TV in my basement. That's the best. That's all it was. And it wasn't good enough to make you want to sit there for 13 hours a day playing it because it just wasn't realistic. It was fun to play here and there, but I was outside.
But also, like, by the time you came up, I guess I should phrase it as, for people who did not grow up on technology, it's natural. And for people who grew up around it but raised in a different way, it's kind of like a learned and a honed skill to avoid things that are actually harming you.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And it's never been hard. It's always been like, keep it separate. I mean, I refused to even get a phone and texting until I was almost 25 years old. Out of high school and college, no smartphone the whole time. Yeah. And this was at a time when they existed. I just was like, no. I noticed it when I would hang out at my old clubhouse, the DZ, with my buddies and listening to music, doing what we used to always do. And slowly over the years, I just kept seeing, there used to be no phones. We're talking 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. No one had phones. And then by like 2011, 12, 13, more and more phones. And I looked around and I was like, the conversations are getting more boring. Everyone's less interested. No one's choosing the music anymore. It's just me. No one wants to, talk more about philosophical things. Like, it's just starting to get less and less and less. And it kind of turned me off. I just saw it reveal right before my eyes, and I was like, I'm not doing that.
It's interesting about that because I'm realizing, Art Night, the event I put on, alcohol-free, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a battle that for me was from the start to finish worth fighting.
What was the battle? The alcohol?
To have it be alcohol-free because, people would, why did I want it to be or why was it a battle?
Yeah.
Every once in a while people would be like, why can't we have alcohol and make things more fun? And really, really push for that. Also, Art Night was not on social media. It was word of mouth. And just going to say, if you ever want to put on an event, social media is not necessary. I'm just saying that for anyone who's listening. Like, we literally put on probably 60 events that had 40 to 100 people without social media.
Mm-hmm.
It was all word of mouth.
Why did you choose that method?
I was not on social media. There are probably a lot of reasons for that, but I felt like it was fake. And I did.
It is.
I would. And instead of, I took an all or nothing approach instead of like what you're doing, kind of parse through it and figure out how it can work for you. Because it is a tool. And as a DIY artist, for now, I'm a DIY artist. It is the best fucking tool.
It's an amazing tool.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's a tool, and you got to know what to use the tool for what job. And it could start being the wrong tool for the wrong job all day, every day. Totally. And I've had my moments. I get in my wormholes. But for the most part, it's a tool. Yep. I have a certain part of the day where I get all the things I need to post on all 6, 7 social medias and get ready to go. I post on all of them. It takes like an hour to do all of them, all the this, the that, the hashtags. Do it and go. And I just tell myself, like, this is part of the job of the thing I do. Normally, someone else does this. This is a job for someone else. I just don't have the money to pay them. So I'm going to do it for a couple of reasons. A, to keep promoting others in what I do and to keep what I'm doing growing. B, because I have to. in order to exist in this world and be taken seriously. And C, so one day when I can hire someone to do this, I know how to do the job and I can relate to them and be a better manager to them and understand what they're doing and literally understand it. When they go like, yeah, we're going to post it at this time and do a collaborative effort with this band and do these hashtags, I will understand it fully because I've been doing it for a decade. And that's what I want to do. I want to learn how to do everything so when I am in charge of more people, and I am all the time for different reasons, I'm better suited to understand them. When I would have the fest, I wouldn't film any of the 40 bands, maybe one, but all I do is film bands all year. So when I do talk to the film crew, I can relate to them. I tell them what to do. You're going to want to use this shutter speed for that angle. The light's bright there. You maybe go this way. Not just so I can comprehend everything they're doing and not left in the dark and not know what's going on.
Right.
I don't want to be a social media manager. Don't like it, but I'm doing it to learn, and grow. And I just treat it like a job.
Absolutely.
If you want to work from home and be your own boss and have your own company or whatever you want it to be, you have to learn how to do that and accept it that it's part of the job. Don't get obsessed with it. Don't get married to it. Don't scroll on all day. Just do the thing, get out, post and go. So that's what my folder says of all my social media apps. It just says post and go. So that's what it's labeled. And that's what I do. And I don't have any notifications from it. Just go in there, do it, get out.
Do you also do the schedule, how you can like schedule a post in advance?
I do, but they switch so often that
it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, because something band reaches out last minute. Hey, can we wait till like?
Right.
It's always just rotating. Like know,
it's easier for you. Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
But it is annoying. It's definitely a lot.
Yeah.
And it's very real. Social media, the outcome of it is real. And then the income of it is not.
Yeah.
Or something along that way where it's like it's not real.
Yeah.
But its ramifications are.
Yeah. And you know what's weird about that? I feel like that really, it was so fucking fun growing up to troll people on video games and like it feels fake, right? You're anonymous.
You're one of those kids.
You're on I was.
Yeah. People don't
ADHD.
They never got out of that world. They still do it.
Yeah. Oh, they still do that.
I love it. Some of my favorite things are the things people say on YouTube because YouTube's mostly guys.
It is mostly. Yeah.
YouTube is mostly men, like 75%, and it's mostly avatars of men. It's brutal. And I turned off notifications from the comments because I used to get them. I used to get like an email. That's ridiculous.
Oh, God.
So I turned that all off. People could still leave them. I just turned it off. But once in a while,
email.
I'll be bored and I'll just like look at the comments on like a more popular video. And I'm just like, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Some people have nothing better to do in their life but to just hate on other people.
I also realized like this is so fucking contrived and messed up. But like if you get a top comment on say like a Mr. Beast video, millions of people are seeing you. So there's also people having bots try to get all the top comments so that they can be seen. It's freaking weird. It's weird.
Does commenting on your YouTube get more people to go to your YouTube and get more followers and stuff?
More people to your YouTube channel? Yeah. I think it does.
Because I don't think I've ever commented on YouTube. And I've had a YouTube channel for like 12 years.
I've never
like
played
1,800
that game
videos, and I've never done it.
That's
explain why I don't have that many subscribers. I really don't comment on anything.
Apparently, like I always see people comment on posts on their video. At least on Instagram. I don't know. Yeah, YouTube maybe too.
Maybe that's why.
I think it's all like putting into the algorithm that
I think
like,
you have
it's an
to put
active channel.
Yeah, they want you to keep putting into it, so it keeps it. They reward you for being active.
Yeah,
that's how it feels. Like,
yeah,
good boy.
Yeah.
Here's a couple more followers.
That's what it's all.
Oh, here you go.
I honestly, I was so anti-social media, but now just the tool that it is for independent whatever is just
get in and get
incredible.
Out. It just takes a little bit of discipline.
Yeah.
It's okay to have it. Get in and get out. Use it in a positive way.
Yeah.
To share, meet new people, invite people for things. Get in and get out. I mean, it's great for that. There's nothing wrong with it. But I'm 34 and I have a developed mind and I grew up without it. And I'm not a teenager with it. And I got MySpace when I was 16 in 2005. I just turned 16, just got it. And I didn't get Facebook till college when I was 18. Yeah. It's back when it was pretty much for college. And I was told when I went to college, like, oh, you should get a Facebook. It's like more mature. It's for like college students. So I was like, huh. And I kind of just like got off MySpace and went to Facebook. Never really used it, just had it. And then, Yeah, and then
You know,
it's never ended since then.
so you know what's interesting about this?
Yeah.
Is that I think when I talk about, because I had a MySpace too, and I always kind of say it like tongue in cheek, like my MySpace with the song that plays and like AOL. But for me, that was my life.
Yeah.
My real experiences that actually mattered to me.
Yeah.
And I think the condescension that I put on myself is very much from like imagining what like a boomer would say about it. But now that I think about it, you know, the fact that I was like reaching out to people on MySpace to talk about music when I was like 13 and 12 is so cool. And I actually wish I could have said to my younger self, like, that's okay. Like, keep doing it.
Yeah.
Have fun, connect with people, be safe. Cause, you know, but like, hell yeah. Like, form that band that you guys are fantasizing about, which we never, like an emo, screamo band.
Yeah.
You know, we never did that, but like, that was really me trying to connect.
Yeah.
That was really actually a real thing.
How old were you when you got a MySpace?
I was probably like 11,
Oh, you got it younger.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you were born 95?
12, 95. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you 90?
89.
89?
89. December 89. So
Yeah.
at the end. Yeah, I got it in like October 2005. I got my
October 2000.
I got my Facebook or MySpace. So it was a year old?
It's around the same time I did.
A year and a half old, 2005?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a year and a
Wow.
half old. I think MySpace started like 6 months before Facebook. They were almost the same year, 2003 or 4. Yeah, and it was really cool. I mean, it's how I met a lot of people. I made
Yeah.
friends through it. I
That's awesome.
think one of my first girlfriends was through it. Like, I met her at like a show and we connected on MySpace, you know, like one of those things, stupid stuff. Yeah, it's how I found out about shows. I started finding out about shows on MySpace, and I'd go to like local shows through MySpace, and then did it through Facebook. And I miss the old Facebook when I first started doing DZ Fest, like 2012, because you were able to make a public event and then click one button, and it would invite all your friends, and it was awesome. And I would get way more people turning out to the shows,
Yeah.
like relative to the popularity and quality. I would get more people going to DZ Fest in the early years than
Yeah.
the later years. More people came in the later years, but there was 40 bands
Yeah.
from around the world. But when there was just 10 bands from my neighborhood,
Yeah.
I had 500 people come.
Right.
And it's like, what? That doesn't because I was able to send the bat signal out way further.
Right.
Then they got rid of that, and you only can invite like 100. And I had a lot of friends then, so I would invite 5,000 people with one button. And I'd tell all my friends to do it. So we cast the net. We would have,
Yeah.
I remember to tell you how many invites were sent out. It would have like 28,000 invites sent out. Because I'd have a big friend group. You get 50 people to
Right.
all invite everyone they know. 30,000 people get invited.
So here's an interesting thing. You know how you organized DEC Vest in a very analog way as well?
Sure, yeah.
And what I'm excited and interested to find out is how my analog skills marry the social media application of them. Because asking 50 of your friends to send out invites is an analog skill.
Yeah.
The confidence to ask for what you need from friends.
They wouldn't do it anymore, though.
They wouldn't do it anymore.
No, nobody would do that now. Are you kidding me? They'd be like, nah, why would I do that?
Well, because they're embarrassed, probably.
They're
right?
embarrassed. They're tired.
Tired. It's one button.
No, because you can't do that anymore. You can't highlight.
Oh.
They got rid of the function.
Oh.
It was something from like 2010 to like 2015. Tired. I don't mean tired like physically. I mean tired of doing like DZ stuff, like having to
Yeah.
like carry that weight. Like,
Yeah.
I got to do this thing again. Like, can I
Yeah.
just show up?
Yeah.
Do I have to do the extra
Right.
work? I'm guessing.
Right.
Because people get exhausted
Yeah.
when you do the same stuff over and over again. So now it works more through word of mouth via they're married. It's word of mouth via the internet. Now it's, oh, I saw you posted something, and then they talk with somebody at a coffee shop
Yeah.
about it. Then that person tells someone at the bar they go to that night. And that person tells someone at a show. Like, it does work by word of mouth, but the seed gets planted via a post on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, so they are similar. You have to do it because it helps, but it helps to do both. Also, do it by word of mouth. Like, do both things. You know?
Yeah. I actually was just thinking about this, that this past year I played almost 40 shows in
Wow.
Chicago. And that's all DIY. That's literally just, I would say almost all of those, except for like 10 were
Yeah.
opportunities that I sought out,
Yeah.
not that came to me.
Yeah.
And my audience grew. It grew, but very marginally compared to if those were 40, let's say 100 social media posts that were really strong. And that's really thought provoking for me, because I've always approached community building as a in-person analog thing, but in some ways it doesn't work to keep. You have to pick your battles, and social media is how the world is operating at large right now.
Now it's only way it works.
Yeah.
You will be quantified by everything. How many posts you got? What does it look like? The actual physical interface layout of your posts and how they creatively look.
Yeah.
How many followers you have? How many people you're following? How many streams you have on Spotify? How many YouTube subscribers? How many YouTube likes? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. I mean, the list goes on. If you're not active on all of them, don't have a certain amount of numbers, the way you'll be treated. I mean, I have so many anecdotal experiences of every time I went up in a title or a degree, the way by degree, I mean college degree, and a job title, the way I've been treated. And every time, even DZ Fest, doing 10 years of it, treated differently. Having a documentary about it, treated differently.
Yeah.
More followers on Instagram, treated differently.
Yeah.
Actually get responses. Even if they say no, just getting a response. I used to get no responses.
Yeah.
I still will get a couple people who don't, which I don't get, but it happens. But sometimes I'm like, oh, it's because of the looks, the optics of it.
Or it's in the DM purgatory type thing.
Yeah. I mean, that happens too. But I mean, just the amount of responses and the types of people that respond now from what it was is insane. I could say, like, oh, if I had more, air quotes, clout, a million followers, and I'd have to stop reaching out. People are reaching out to me too much. That was a good catch. Yeah. So it is part of it. It's how you're judged and quantified, because it's quantifiable. You could see 20,000 followers. Wow, there's 20,000 people like this person. Yeah. Okay. Maybe they're important. Like, that's how we do it now.
And so this is an interesting thing to me, because obviously we know that more people liking something says nothing about the quality of that.
I was just going to say, for those listening, kids, it doesn't mean that you are accomplished or important or anything. It just means 20,000 people liked you. It could be from one post that went viral. It could mean that you just showed a lot of skin and people liked it, so it got an extra likes. Like, because someone shared something of you and you didn't do anything. I mean, there's so many factors into it, so it doesn't equate. Just like earlier we were saying, like, money and success, they're not connected. They're not mutually exclusive.
And that's why it's a little bit like, well, artists in society have always, I'm generalizing, but have pushed against the grain and also embraced fame and fortune and all that stuff.
Sure.
Of course. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix was a fucking multi-millionaire who also tragically, whatever, was not happy. Mm-hmm. Or I don't know how he felt, but
he did hard drugs.
Yeah.
And he died from them, so
yeah,
probably not the best.
But I guess maybe it's more of a North Star fantasy that artists should be questioning these things. But if you live in a society where the way you make money is this way, you have no choice. Mm-hmm. Unless you really want to commit to a, farming life somewhere, which you can do.
Yeah.
But that's such an extreme thing that also uproots everything else you might enjoy about society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even farmers are using social media now to make it cool and popular. I've seen a lot of farmers have a lot of followers because they do like cute stuff with their cows and their ducks, you know, right before they kill them. They don't show that part. No. But yeah, it is, social media isn't real, but its outcome, the ramifications are as real as it gets.
Yeah.
So you got to be balanced with it. You definitely need to use it if you are in anything creative. It's almost a must. And for those who don't...
If you want to get your stuff out. Yes. But if you're just doing creative stuff after your day job, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if you're trying to make money, sell stuff, sell tickets, sell merch, connect, build a community, you have to. It's the only place to do it. And then you got to follow up. Then you got to do this stuff in real life. And that's where social media gets weird, because are they all actually living up to what they're doing on that thing? Is it a 1-to-1 ratio of like, I'm doing this thing and this is what I'm doing? I personally only will do stuff on there that I'm doing. Like, I'll show the thing that I'm doing or show the people I'm promoting because the thing happened. But I don't understand a fake form or a fake front of it, a facade. That's the only thing where it gets tricky, where social media can be a little bit of an illusion.
You have more of live streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have more of an organic slice of life approach, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
is that I'm just trying to summarize what you were saying?
I would, just
which
like,
is a whole
if this is
variety
happening
of social media too.
then this is happening. I mean,
Yeah.
it's none of it is
The smokes and mirrors.
zero, because it's just like, that's, first of all, it's just exhausting to keep up with that.
Yeah.
And it's mentally taxing. And second of all, fortunately, I'm doing enough to I don't have to make up anything. Like, these things are all happening and happening a lot, and I'm just doing it. And there's no need to like make up stuff just to make it look like I'm still busy. You know, I didn't really post much over winter break because I just wanted to take a break and chill for like a couple weeks over the season. Like, that's it.
That's another side of this, is that like in addition to our creative life and our trying to build these things in the public, they're not synonymous with our life at large. No matter how much of my time and energy and psyche is focused on music and all that stuff, at the end of the day, it's like my closest friends and my girlfriend or people who have maybe nothing to do with it and would support me whether or not I played music, that make any of that enjoyable / basically, I can't have mental health doing social media if I actually think that is my life.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Or that my life should look the way other people. That's so obvious.
Yeah.
But like, it's
for some kids, for a 16-year-old kid, it's not so obvious.
No.
That's their life. It's reality. They think that's what men and women look like.
Kids talk about it at school.
It's gotta be so hard. I keep saying this, but I think parents of their friends in their community should get together and be like, listen, because the big problem with like not letting your kid have a phone till 16 is at school everyone has them. They won't fit in. They'll be out of the circle. They won't fit in pop culture. They'll be alienated. They'll feel weird. It's not good for the kid's psyche. But to do the opposite is not good either. To give them the phone at 10 and let them rot their brain.
Yeah.
But if all the parents in the community got together and were like, hey, let's all collectively not give our kids a phone till 16.
That's what it's got to be, right?
And when we do, we keep it minimal.
Yeah.
And like turn off the internet on it after 8 p.m. and turn it back on at 8 a.m. or whatever. If everyone could agree to that, then we could do it. It could be a community effort. And it's going to vary community to community, neighborhood to neighborhood. But that'd be a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, principals and deans at school should hold meetings with parents. Be like, hey, if we can get our students to all collectively be more careful with it, then they won't feel alienated when they go to school and everyone's on their phone versus everyone's not on their phone. And it's cool to like leave your phone at home and only use it when you get home. Like that's what we do now.
Yeah.
Like you're on your phone right now. Don't you want to like live reality? Like you got to do that stuff.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just going to keep spiraling. And kids are at 5 years old. They're going to have phones, and then 3. And then it's just going to be handed to the infant when they come out of the mom's womb. You know?
Make your profile.
Make your profile. You know? I think it's...
Oh, shit.
I think we have to end now, right?
This was great.
Like very shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could, 5-10 minutes, wrap it up. Yeah.
We still we have so many things to wrap up.
I know, right?
Drugs, Jews.
That's it.
That's it. Famous, important people in your family. Pretty wild stuff.
It is. It is empowering.
It's cool.
But it's also not. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
It's inspirational.
It's inspirational and empowering because it's like, it does break down a barrier, right? Like if my uncle's stuff is in the Art Institute, it's like, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Where is his work in there? I was just there on Saturday.
It would be the modern wing.
Oh, what's his name again?
Larry Rivers.
Larry, I'll have to, okay. Larry Rivers. I'll
Real
check
name
it out.
Yitzhak Groisberg.
I love that. Yitzhak
Groisberg.
Yitzhak.
We'll do a Hebrew. Next episode, Hebrew lesson.
Groisberg. Berg. A lot of Bergs. Steins and Bergs. Yeah. That's
Means
interesting.
mountain.
What's up?
Berg means mountain.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like Hochberg. My last name means high mountain.
Iceberg.
Ice.
This makes perfect sense.
Hamburg, Germany.
Harrisburg. Pittsburgh.
Is there a mountain near Pittsburgh?
Yeah, it's in mountains.
Really?
The Appalachian
There you
Mountains.
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
How'd you know?
How'd you know? Jared, thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks for having me,
I love
man.
the shirt, by the way.
Thank you so much.
I didn't get to compliment it.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun. It's great what you do and what you did with Art Night. So thank you for 6 years of that. And you're still associated with it?
There's a new team putting on, which is very heartwarming. It makes me so happy. It's already been half a year doing it every month for them.
Nice.
So it's not dead.
It's not dead.
And that means a lot because it's an important thing.
Sure.
And if they ever have questions or need help, now I can consult with them. But
And where can people find that information?
Art Night Chicago is the Instagram. And if you want to hear the spirit and ethos of Art Night in music form, follow my band, Robot Heart Throb.
Yeah, which is a great band.
Thank you.
I remember when you guys did a session, I love the enthusiasm and the wildness in your sax solos and stuff.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Art Night, I was fortunate to speak at one and participate, and it was really cool. The crowd was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Afterwards, a bunch of people came up to me and were asking questions. It was cool. I really enjoyed it. And I even enjoyed it. It reminded me, it was a weird combo of camp meets youth group. It was so youth group feeling.
Absolutely.
Not even funny. Like,
Yeah.
all right, let's get in circles and like play games to like get to know each other. I'm like, I feel like I went to a new youth group at a church I haven't been to yet. Like, that's what it feels like. And then you take out the alcohol and drugs and it really feels that way.
Yeah.
Which is great because, I'm not saying like it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a very heartfelt and like thing you just don't get a lot as an adult, which is nice. So thank you for creating that and doing that.
Thank you.
And then people can find your music.
Robot Heart Throb on Spotify and Instagram and Bandcamp and everything.
And you guys play all the time. You're playing
Play all
everywhere.
the time.
Awesome.
The next, I'm playing all solo shows this month, including Portland, but the big ones we're playing at Reggie's and Cobra Lounge in February. So that's all on our Instagram.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Reggie's and Cobra.
First time
Reggie's
at those
not
venues.
far from here at all. It's like a mile.
Right.
And a
It's
half
kind of
from
like
here.
South Side-ish.
It's 22nd and State. 20th and State. It's right down the street from here.
Oh, that's sick.
Gosh, man, I'll go there.
Yeah.
I'll probably walk there. Anything else you want to promote before we go?
That's pretty much it. Follow us on Spotify. Check it out. New music coming soon.
And be nice to everyone. Be nice to your
promote
neighbors.
kindness, yes.
Promote kindness. Be nice. If someone's different from you, talk to them. Ask why they feel the way they do. Don't get offended. We're stuck on this rock together, so we need to kind of figure it out. Otherwise, it's not going to look too good. All right.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks, everyone. Ciao.
Bye.